Is continuity important in comic books? Hey there, this is your Matt Dude with too much time on his hands. Doodle here with another video. And today, I wanted to see how important continuity is in the comic book community. But first, before I get into my actual thoughts on it, I wanted to thank NikkiPool415 for this video. Because I asked in one of my community posts, what would you like to see me talk about? And they recommended this, and I want to thank them. And if you have any ideas on a video you want me to talk about, just comment on any recent video I make or on a community post, and I most likely will make it, and you put your name on there so they know they have the credit. So if you want to do that, just let me know in the comments down below. And now let's get into my actual thoughts on continuity. Okay, continuity is important in comic books, but that depends on the actual medium of comics you're going with, because you do need a stopping point in a comic book continuity. I'm going to put an example like Marvel and DC, the big two, because that's the majority people know about. Having continuity in something like that, it is extremely impossible, to be honest, because it's not just one person writing all these different comics. Like in Marvel, there's people writing for, like, let's say Spider-Man, the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, characters like that. And DC, they got Batman, Justice League, Teen Titans, all that stuff. And it's not just that. There's people writing the same type of character for different type of stories. The problem is that technically, if you're going by the main universes they're in, like the one that most people are going to, enjoy, the one that people go as for gospel whenever they're adapting, like with Marvel's 616 and DC's Earth 1, which, damn, DC, you gotta change your number. It's really, there's so many Earth 1s and Earth 2s. They all technically exist in the same universe, so every little story they have has to somehow exist in the same point from different stories. And that's where continuity becomes extremely hard to contain, because someone could be writing something about Spider-Man having this type of story, or Batman having a story about something else, and then they have to relate it back to the main story. Comic have side stories of the main character. It's really weird, but they have that, and then the continuity will break. Like Spider-Man from like the 80s will be very different from Spider-Man nowadays. And what's extremely hard about that too with continuity is that technically their time, like the way they exist, like to us, since Spider-Man's been around since the 60s, but Spider-Man, it's been like maybe 10 years, 20 years, most of him being Spider-Man. You know how complicated that actually is to cram all the stuff we've had with him in there, and then just kind of like saying, oh yeah, all this existed in his timeline. And I'm like, what kind of continuity is this? That's complicated. And it's just like, why? There's so much. Like, I get it. It's so that these characters can live on forever. But that's where continuity can, not a good thing. Because, where is the continuity? But I want to do an example of good continuity. Of making a continuity that's good. When things are self-contained, if that makes sense. Like, I'm going to use a certain example from the things I've read. Invincible. I'm not going to put spoilers because I want you to actually read it. It's actually really good. And you can watch the TV show. It's really good at adapting the comic. But the comic has an ending. It ends at a point. Yes, it happened for so many years. But here's what I said about like the years in Marvel or DC is so complicated. For the amount of years that it happened in Invincible, technically took place in the almost identical amount of time that it happened in the comics. From 2003 all the way to 2017, that's how long the Invincible character grew. And that's another thing. No more than like one or more people were writing that storyline. In the Invincible comics, it's all about Invincible. Yes, there's other characters they can talk about, but not that many. They could have this character, but it's not like they have like 100 people they have to write about, or like 2 or 3 people writing the same character to try to relate it. It's not like that. They were all just focusing on that character, which made continuity a little simple. Yeah, it happened for so long that even some things were not going to make sense, but they even poke fun of that. So yeah, or something that's a little more recent from what I've read, which I love reading, The Last Ronin. I love the TMNT, and with continuity, this has nothing to do with continuity, but it's its own self-contained thing. It's not hard to follow because, yeah, you kind of need an understanding on who the turtles are, But that's really about it. The reason why I like, let's say, Elseworlds, the reason why I like them is because they can have the basic gist of what we know of that character, but they can move them around. And yeah, we can get mad about the changes, but that's what makes them their own thing. That's the problem of making a continuous story every time. And that's another thing about the, let's say, the TMNT. They change every time. Yeah, they have their own continuities, but they don't step on each other's toes. And that's how the turtles always seem kind of fresh, if that makes sense. You can have the turtles from the cartoons, you can have the turtles from the original comics, you can have the ones from the new comics, or you can have Elseworld comics like this. And it all feels well. You don't feel overwhelmed with it. And even with DC, let's say with that, I've also read the White Knight comic, which is really good. If you haven't read them, please go read it. It's really good. This is its own self-contained stuff. Yeah, they're trying to do more stuff on it, but it's based on one character or one storyline. They're not doing multiple people and expanding upon other people's comics. No, it's not that. It's just one story and they're following it through. That's where continuity can be done correctly. And did it sound confusing? Yes, it did. And I know you're going to say that, hey, Marvel and DC can't really just skip out on that stuff. And I'm like, I understand because they already have their whole universe they're working with, but they don't need to keep continuing and backstabbing characters. Like, okay, I'm going to go back. With Spider-Man, like I said, if every time they do a new story on him, they don't allow that character to age. So what continuity is there really? Because they're basically saying, like, for him, hey, Spider-Man growing, but then reverting back to a certain point. See, I'm going to say this, like I think a lot of people do. I like when he got married. That was a nice, hey, this is where we are at, and then we can increase and we can improve upon that, and that's where continuity can be well done. Even with all the complicated, hey, this happened back then, and then he's completely different nowadays, and that basically technically only happened in like 10 years type thing. But it still works because he's still progressing. But now because the big comic companies don't want their characters to age that much, it made me kind of stop reading the main comics like with Marvel and DC and doing mostly, Elseworlds. That's where I started reading them because they're technically a fresh start on continuity, on their own continuity. Like again, White Knight's own continuity. You just follow whatever's in there, and if they have any questions, just check what's in there, and they most likely will have an answer. Or like in The Last Ronin, just read whatever's in here, and you'll see, okay, this universe contains this that we normally know about this character, but it may not contain everything that we know about them in this other thing because they're malleable, I guess. What I mean continuity is supposed to be. What I'm just trying to say, continuity should be able to improve upon a story. It shouldn't be able to restrict a story. It should be able to allow you to evolve a character to a certain point. And then in my opinion, I think a comic should end. Either self-contained or have a plan that it may end. Because you know that that's where it's better off. Because again, I said that the Marvel and DC comics kind of bore me now. They don't excite me like they used to. My idea is just that saying that comics should have a stopping point to them. Not that those characters should have an end per se. Just keep continuing them, like in different things. I'm gonna go back to Turtles. They have so many other versions of them that we can read them to the end. Now we have stories where there's so many things happen. Now we have stories that we don't think we could have been shown in the main comics, but it's ended up working for them because it's a version of that character, if that makes sense. I know I'm most likely blabbering and it doesn't really make too much sense, but that's usually how I make my videos. And I have a question for you. Do you like continuity in your comic books? Do you not like them? Let me know in the comments down below. Is it more complicated for you? And tell me what you think. I think it's very nuanced on how continuity can work and not work in comic books. But hey, if you like this video, please let me know in the comments down below. And if you want to suggest more video ideas, let me know in the any either new video that's coming out or community posts that I make, which I make kind of frequently. This has been Dynamite, and I hope to see everyone in the next video.